You're listening to the weekly Parsha Podcast with Ari Goldwag, recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramat Beit Shemesh, Israel, 5785, 2025. This week's Parsha is Parshas Balak. Before we get into the Parsha, just want to bring to your attention a great occasion, and that is that with the completion of Parshas Balak, it's been 18 rounds, 18 years, Baruch Hashem, of the Parsha Podcast, which I'm very proud of, and I know that so many people, Baruch Hashem, benefit from this. And I will mention, I only do this once a year, but there are sponsorships available for the Parsha Podcast. Some people have made use of that. I encourage it. You can go onto my website. You can either send me an email, arigoldwag@gmail.com, to sponsor a podcast. Or, of course, you can give any amount by donating on the donation page on my website, arigoldwag.com. 18 years, so much Torah we've learned together, so much insight we've had into the Parsha, and there's always more to learn, there's always something new to see. In this week's Parsha, so we have Bilaam is being hired, conscripted by Balak to curse the Jewish people, to prevent them, to stop them from their national destiny. The Jewish people's national destiny is to get to Eretz Yisrael, to get to the land of Israel. And they feel threatened by that, the Moabite people. And so the Parsha describes the blessings that came out of the mouth of Bilaam. He wished and he tried to curse us, but he was thwarted. His plans were thwarted by Hashem. Instead, Hashem gave him blessings to say. The Pasuk says, in Parak Chav Gimel, Pasuk Hey, Vayasem Hashem davar b'pi Bilam, Vayomer shuv al Balak v'choy tedaber. Hashem places his word, places a statement in the mouth of Bilam. He says, go back to Balak, and this is what I want you to say. Vayashav elav v'hinei nitzav al elasai hu v'chol sarim moav. So Balak and all of his officers, all of the important dignitaries of Moab, they were standing there, they had brought sacrifices, thinking that they're going to get in God's good graces and be able to curse the Jewish people. But this is what Bilaam says. Vayisam shaloi vayomer. He lifts up his mashal, his analogy. He goes into a state of poetry. He talks about the Jewish people in poems. Vayomer, and he says like this, Min Aram yancheni. From Aram I was placed. We'll see what this means shortly. Balak melech bayav mehare kedem. Balak, the king of Moab, from ancient mountains. L'cha ar li Yaakov. I was instructed to go and to curse the people of Jacob. L'cha zayam Yisrael. Bring out God's anger upon the people of Israel. But, says Bilaam, Pasuk Ches, what can I curse that Hashem is not cursed? What can I be angry at that Hashem is not angry at? I can't create any anger against Am Yisrael because Hashem is not angry at Am Yisrael. They were standing, looking at the Jewish people from the mountain, looking down upon the Jewish people. He says, I can see them from the highest heights. Migvois ashurenu. And I can spy them from those high places. Hein am levada dishkain. Vagoyim lo yischashov. They're a nation that dwells alone. They're unique. They're special. The Jewish people are not counted amongst the nations. There's something different about them. There's something different about Am Yisrael. Mi mana afar Yaakov. Mispars Rav Yisrael. Who can count the uncountable people of Yaakov? The people of Jacob are considered like the dust of the earth. Just like you can't count the specks of dust, you can't count the Jewish people. I wish, let my death come, a righteous death, the death of those who have walked straightly with God. Let my end be like theirs. And Balak gets frustrated. Vayomer Balak el Bilaam, "Ma asisali." Bilaam says, "What did you do to me? L'koi v'yivai l'kachticha. I've hired you to curse my enemies. Yinei berachta varech." And you didn't. You blessed them. And Bilaam says, "Look, I can't say anything other than what God puts in my mouth." It's a very interesting scene. You have two wicked people trying to bring about a negative impact on Am Yisrael, but they're just not able. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not let it. It just can't happen. If Am Yisrael is doing what we're supposed to do, and as we're going to see even when we're not doing what we're supposed to do, Hashem loves us. Hashem blesses us. And as we'll also see, Hashem blesses those who bless us. Hashem curses those who curse us. So that's the narrative that's written here of what happened between Bilaam and Balak. And I'd like to read to you from the Medrash. The Medrash gives us an insight into all of these different statements. And some of them seem almost contradictory to what it says in the Parsha Pshat. But of course, there's a deep lesson that the Medrash is trying to teach us, as it always does. And before I even read what the Medrash is about to say, I just want to preface it with what we just read, that Bilaam is trying to curse Am Yisrael and he doesn't succeed. And he himself says, "Look, when I die, I want to be like them." I don't know about now, but I want to be like them in the end. And that's a powerful statement from our enemy, from our enemies who wish to destroy us. Really, there's a begrudging respect. Hard to understand, but there's a begrudging respect. The first thing that he says is that I was directed by Aram. I was given instructions by Aram. Who's Aram? Aram was a little area where a group of people came from, namely the Jewish people. Avraham Avinu was from Avram, was the Av Aram. He came from that area. And Moab and Ammon, those two great nations, they were from Lot. And they also came from that area. Lot was Avram's nephew. But the Medrash understands it to mean something different. So let me just finish that thought. Moab, the king of Moab is Balak. And he is sending an instruction to Bilaam to curse the Jewish people. So he is called from Aram, because he's from Moab, and Moab is from Lot, and Lot is from Aram. Notice that we go back to the root. We see where things are from. Let's speak about that. We see where things are really from. And Bilaam says, I was directed by you, the king of Moab, who comes from Aram. Pasach ve'amar min haramim ha'yisi. Medrash takes the pasuk out of Parsha Pshat, and he tells us something that's being alluded to in Bilaam's statement. And I believe that the permission, so to speak, to draw this allusion, to see it, is from what he said at the end, which is that he says, I want to be like the Jewish people. But even in the beginning of his statement, he's saying, I came from Aram, or I was directed by Aram. What does that mean? The word Aram, which is the name of a place, also has the root of the word Ram, which means lofty and high. Bilaam is saying, I started off on a high level. I actually had a great spiritual attainment. Varidani Balak lebershachas. And Balak drew me down into the deepest pit, which is usually a reference to Gehenna, to the fiery pits of hell, which is where a person experiences the evil of all that he's done. It cleans him off. But he's saying that I am recognizing, as he's speaking, Bilaam, he's recognizing that I've been dragged down by Balak and his nefarious ways, his plans to cause destruction to the Jewish people. I am being drawn down by that. And if you think about it, it's very interesting. We look at Bilaam as like this kind of very wicked person. He's really wants to curse them, but if you look at the psukim, I mean, it doesn't really sound like that. It sounds like he's just saying whatever God says, that's what I'm going to say, and that's what he does. But the Medrash understands something powerful here, that saying the right things is not enough. Because if your intent is to do something wrong, which was his intent, because he was being hired by Balak, as Balak says to him, I hired you to curse my enemies. And if Bilam goes along for the ride, even if he doesn't succeed, the negative intent is destructive, self-destructive. And even Bilam, perhaps not at a conscious level, but at a subconscious level, there's an acknowledgement of this. He's saying, I was from a high place, I was from Aram, and you threw me down, you brought me down to a very low place by trying to get me to curse the Jewish people. The word Yancheni can also be read as Yanheni, as the Meforshim explain. The Ches and the Hey are interchangeable. And that comes from the word Nehei al Hamayim Mitzrayim Varideu. There's a concept of Nehei, which means to groan and to have a woeful approach. Balak was saying, look, I've become woeful. I've been brought down, as the pasuk says here, Nehei al Hamayim Mitzrayim Varideu. There's a bringing down that's occurred. Davar acher min Aram, imram shelamalan hayisi varidani balak mikvaydi. One aspect is a personal aspect. Bilam originally was a great person, it sounds like, from the Medrash, and he was destroyed by being willing, even though he didn't do it, by being willing to curse the Jewish people. But there's another aspect, which is an outer aspect. And that is that originally, Bilam was very high. He was very honored. If you would have asked, even Moshe Rabbeinu maybe, about Bilam, he's a good guy. But Balak caused him to lose his honor. Medrash says an interesting analogy to somebody who's walking with the king. Ra listened, and they saw that there was a robber. He got excited. Oh man, I want to see what it's like to be with the robbers. What is it like to have those experiences, the excitement? He became one of the robbers. Now this guy comes back to the king and he wants to get back into the king's good graces, and the king says, you wanted to hang out with the wretched? You wanted to hang out with those who were wicked? Go hang out with them. I'm not interested in having you with me anymore. You've become like them. In a similar way, Bilam originally was with the king. He had divine inspiration. It was real. And what happens? But the pasuk says, in the end, he went back to being just a regular old magician. Bilam ben Ba'or HaKois, and the pasuk says in Yeshua, Perkid Gimel pasuk Chav Beis, refers to Bilam as a magician. He was just into black magic. He had originally been in the space of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Can you imagine that? He was really there. And Hashem threw him out. Right? So one is a personal thing. He was brought down. He saw inside of himself. He became nothing. He lost his spirituality. And in another sense, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself rejected him. Hashem himself said, look, you can't go in that direction and not be destroyed. And he became just a regular old magician. He lost his superpowers. He lost his godly powers. And that's why he said, I was originally so high, but I've been abandoned. I've been abandoned by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Another concept here is that min Aram Yancheni. Min Aram means I understand where I came from. I came from Aram, like we said before. Balak was the king of Moab. Moab came from Lot. Lot was the nephew of Avram Avinu. And they were from Aram. It was the place that they were from. A recognition of where they were was lost, where they were from. What does that mean? Bilaam says to Balak, you have made us both, by asking me to curse the Jewish people, you've brought us both into a space which is the opposite of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the ingratitude, lack of appreciation of where we come from. Without Avraham, who would Balak be? Balak, king of Moab. Avram saved Lot. Avram, because of his chus, because of his merit, Lot was brought out of Sodom. And he ended up having these two kids named Ammon and Moab. Why? Because of Avraham, his merit. When Hashem was destroying those cities, Hashem remembered Avram and he sent out Lot. It was Hashem's memory, so to speak, of the greatness of Avram Avinu that stood on behalf of Lot, that he should be saved. You come from, we're going to see where he comes from, Bilaam, but Balak comes from Lot. If not for Avram, who's the grandfather of the Jewish people, where's your gratitude? Where would you be today? You wouldn't even exist. And Bilaam says about himself, if not for Yaakov himself, Avram's grandson, if not for Yaakov, I wouldn't be here. As we're soon going to see, Bilaam was, our Chazal say, he was one of the offspring of Lot. Sorry, not of Lot, of Lavan. We'll start with a Lamed. We find that before Yaakov arrived, Lavan didn't have any sons. The pasuk says that Rachel, the daughter of Lavan, she had come, she was the shepherdess. Why was she the shepherdess? Where were the boys? If he would have had sons, it would have been the boys who were shepherding. But then Lavan did have kids. He did have sons. Once Yaakov got there, part of the reason that Lavan became upset at Yaakov was because he listened to the words of his sons. So he had sons. Where did they come from? They came in the chus of Yaakov. Which, by the way, means that wherever the spiritually ascendant person is, that person brings with them blessings. That's an important thing. When Am Yisrael comes somewhere, we bring with us blessings. That's part of what makes the nations of the world jealous of us. We have a certain koach, we have a certain power, we have a certain connection to Hashem. We have a certain goodness, we have a certain wish to accomplish and to do good for people around us. And that expresses itself in a spiritual sense. Yaakov comes in, Lavan has sons. He didn't have sons before. And who came from those sons? Bilaam did. He also says, Lavan said, I was able to determine from looking at my magical means that the blessings that came into my house were because of you. So Bilaam is saying, look, by us trying to curse the offspring of Avram, the offspring of Yaakov, what we're doing is we're showing our ingratitude. We're only here because of them, because of their great-grandfather. What's going on with us? We're so afraid. I'm adding this, it doesn't say this in the measures, but we're so afraid of the destructive force of the Jewish people that we're going to cut off the blessings of the Jewish people. Wherever the Jewish people go, they bring blessings. They brought blessings to us. We exist because of them. Why would I think that as they walk through our land, they're going to bring about destruction to us? That's just not what they're about. We're making a mistake when we try to curse them. What we need to do is bless them. It says the Medrash L'charali, Balak had said to Bilaam, go and curse for me. The word li can mean for me, or can also mean to me. So Balak, in a certain sense, was saying, bring the curses to me. Says the Medrash, that's what it means in the pasuk. That when a person curses the Jewish people, they're bringing themselves a curse. Pasuk says, those who curse Am Yisrael are cursed. Those who curse Avraham Avinu are cursed. If you look for the blessings in the Jewish people, you receive blessings. If you look for the curses, you receive curses. And that's what we get. We're coming here, we're trying to get curses for them, but we're just getting curses for ourselves. And where does it come from? Just before I keep reading, where does it come from? It comes from an ingratitude. That's what I wanted to stress that. If I don't realize where the good things come from, I can end up hurting the people around me. How often does it happen that a child doesn't recognize how much good that they get from their parents? They curse their parents. I don't mean literally with curse words, but they have a negative view of their parents. They speak negatively of their parents. They think negatively of their parents. How often does that happen? Do we not appreciate, I'm only here because of them? I'm only here because of my parents. How much gratitude do I owe them? And being in a space of ingratitude, it's self-destructive. That's what the Medrash is teaching us. Bilaam is self-destructing. He's going to end up being nothing more than a cheap magician. He used to be able to pull a rabbit out of a hat, literally. It was magic. He had the magic. And now he has to resort to tricks and sleight of hand. He lost the power. Why? Because he became ungrateful. He didn't recognize who he was. He lost his connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we lose our connection to Hashem when we lose our connection to others around us. And we lose our gratitude for the good that others have done for us. It's a powerful lesson. When we're negative and we're walking around with curses, we end up with the curses, heaven forbid. And when we are looking for blessings, I'm trying to bless others, I get blessed. And then the Medrash says something even deeper. Bilaam says, look, I'm trying to curse the people of Jacob, the people of Israel. Now, if I would have tried to curse the people of Avraham or the people of Yitzchak, that might have been a different story. We know that Avraham had a son named Yishmael, who was most of his life not righteous. Yitzchak had a son named Esav, who was wicked. But the people of Israel, you have a king, another mashal to a king. You have a king, and the king chooses a group of people to be his officers. He recognizes the greatness in them, he sees the potential in them, and he chooses them to be his officers. And someone comes and says, oh, those guys are terrible. They're not good officers. They're not so smart. Do you think that the king is going to allow that person to live? You speak negatively of my chosen officers? Am Yisrael is Hashem's inheritance. Hashem loves the Jewish people. They are his special nation. They are his chosen people. The pasuk says in the Devarim, the portion of Hashem is his nation. Jacob is literally the rope of his inheritance, which means they're the ones that are always connected to him. The Yisam Li Segula, Yisrael, is referred to as a special chosen nation. He's not going to get away with it. You can't curse God's special chosen people. Imagine the king puts a beautiful crown on his head, bedecked with jewels and diamonds, silver, gold. And someone comes along and says, that's from a thrift store. It's a piece of junk. You think that person will live? Because he says in Yeshaya about Am Yisrael, Hashem loves us. This is the nation of Israel who I I take splendor from them. They're my crown. And someone's going to come and try to speak negatively of them. Chas v'shalom. And then comes the final point, which I'd like to share with you. What can I curse that God is not cursed? Measure says, Am Yisrael had chances to be cursed. They'd done things wrong. And Hashem did not curse us. Yaakov, Avinu wants to get the blessings from his father, from Yitzchak. And he comes in, he disguises himself as his older brother. The father says, who are you? He lies and he says, I'm your oldest son, Esav. Yaakov is saying a lie. He's tricking his father to get the blessings. He should be cursed. But what does the pasuk tell us? Not only wasn't he cursed, he was blessed. Yitzchak acknowledges that although he took the blessings in an underhanded way, nevertheless, he would be blessed. Those blessings would take effect. How can I curse them, says Bilaam? God has not cursed them. Hashem had an opportunity. Yitzchak had a chance. He could have cursed Yaakov, but he didn't. They were blessed, even though he'd done something on the surface which seemed wrong. Similar idea, the exact same idea. When, let's say, you have a legion of the army who rebels against the king, they're liable for death. Am Yisrael did the same thing. We denied God. We rebelled against God. We said about the golden calf, this is your God that took you out of Egypt. Doesn't get worse than that. Shouldn't Hashem have destroyed them? Even at that time, Hashem did not stop loving them. He loves Am Yisrael. Hashem loves the Jewish people dearly. You cannot take away that love, even if we have done something so terrible. We've denied Hashem. We've said, this is the one who took me out of Egypt, right in front of Hashem's face. Because Baruch Hu continues to give them the miraculous manna. Hashem continues to give them the miraculous water from the well of Miriam. Hashem continues to give them the Anonei Yaakov, the clouds of glory which protected them. Every single moment in the midbar. Pasuk says in Nehemiah, they did this terrible thing, but you didn't destroy them. So Bilaam says, how could I possibly curse them? Am Yisrael is so loved by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The love is so deep and so real that no matter what they do, Hashem won't curse them. How could I curse them? I can't do it. So Bilaam is like stuck in this kind of limbo place. He wishes to do bad to them. He's like, I can't. I just can't do it. And he wishes that he could be like them, but he couldn't do it himself. He had already taken that path, and he didn't recognize that there's always a path back. He didn't go back to the root and the source, which is the Hakaras HaTov, the remembering where it comes from. Why am I here today? Bilaam was only there because of Yaakov. Balak was only there because of an Avraham. They couldn't bring themselves to that recognition, to go back to the root. But in what they couldn't do, we see what we can do. We have this tendency. We're human. We judge. In our minds, sometimes outwardly. But we can reverse that. We can look for blessings. We can look to bring goodness and love to others. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have to force us like he did to Bilaam. Bilaam didn't manage to get out of being forced and come out the other end with a connection with Hashem. But as long as he was connected, and as long as we are, to the degree that we are able to connect and to bless and to look past the negative things, we're connecting to the truth, which is that Hashem loves us no matter what. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please